This past year has been a tough one for boxing and martial arts groups. The clubs up and down the country are fighting back. In this podcast series from the Fight for Peace Alliance, we share our stories and experiences of reopening our clubs so that we can continue to provide opportunities and safe spaces for young people in our communities. I'm Bali Kuman, the Alliance Development Officer here at Fight for Peace. Along with our partners, we use combat sports plus youth development activities to support young people to realise their potential. Our vital sports and youth services across the UK have been disrupted by coronavirus, and many of our young people have been disproportionately affected. This is why it's more important than ever that we continue to deliver our services. So across 6 episodes of this podcast series, I'm joined online by 4 of our partner organisations. They are Vulcan Learning Centre in Hull.
Hi guys, hope you're all very well. My name's Adam Parnaby.
Gloves Not Gun CIC in Croydon.
Hi guys, my name's Adam Ballard.
Switch Up CIC in Nottingham.
My name's George Overton.
Our own Youth Leadership Coordinator.
Yeah, my name is Leonas Gracious.
And Sheffield City Boxing Club.
Hi everyone, my name is Brendan Warburton.
Each month we will share with you what's worked, our challenges, with the hope that we can support you to adapt your services and continue to impact young people in your community. All activities discussed in this podcast supporting young people, either in person or remotely, are delivered within safeguarding good practice guidelines and guidelines for COVID-19 safety. This episode focuses on how we are developing and responding to the challenge we have been facing due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Learning and developing as an organisation is crucial in keeping our support and services relevant and impactful for young people in our communities. Later in this episode, you'll hear a case study from Marcellus Bass, the founder and CEO of Switch Up CIC in Nottingham. He explains why he believes it's really important to create a learning culture within our teams. But first, I caught with our partners over Zoom on the first Monday of England's second lockdown, which meant all the clubs were currently closed to group activities. I start off by asking the group how they've been adapting now they're back in lockdown. Adam from Vulcan Learning Centre in Hull kicks off.
Obviously, we had much notice when we was going to go into lockdown at all. So what we tried to do is go straight online. The most important thing for us was not to miss anything. So lockdown started on Thursday. Thursday was our planned session as normal. So rather than wait around, we just decided to go straight in there with an online session. The numbers have dropped a little bit. We're down to like 6s and 7s, but that was kind of what we expected. So we went straight into them sessions with no hesitation.
Our priority was to get an online timetable out there, which we can make sure that everybody's engaged in and is accessible and based on what works and what didn't last time. So we've got women-only boxing Zoom this time, which we didn't have last time, which we thought would be good. We've got a general Zoom boxing class once a week, and then healthy eating class once a week, which worked well last time and was popular. And finally, a sort of family fitness, something that kids can do with their parents or carers as well. These things worked last time. We dropped some things which didn't work last time. So we're trying to learn as we go along.
I think really consult with the young people and find out whether this is something that they actually want to do. Simply because I think in the last lockdown, everyone was kind of caught off guard a little bit, and we went into it with a lot of enthusiasm, trying to kind of adapt to everything. And I think at the beginning, like I said, for the first 2 weeks, there seemed to be some good feedback. But again, it's difficult to tell with online sessions. I mean, Zoom is slightly better because people can turn their cameras on and you can see if they're exercising. But I think a lot of work went into it, and quite quickly it dropped off. And then it was quite disheartening for the coaches and staff, which is the reason why we're not doing that very much at all this time. Because I think, just in terms of the amount of work that went in, I think it was quite difficult. So I really find out from the young people what they want the sessions to look like. I think co-designing them with them a little bit would be good. Because even if you've only got 6 or 7 young people that want to do sessions, making the sessions suitable for them would be really important. And just continue to get feedback and adapt the sessions. If and get the young people to be honest. If the young people at some stage are saying, we're tired of it, we don't want to do it anymore, at least you've had that dialogue and you know that, rather than you setting up sessions and young people just don't turn up. So
that was Jamie Lowe, Fight for Peace's very own open access coordinator. You just heard there. Now, we heard a little bit about this in episode 1, but I really wanted to find out how clubs have been consulted with young people in preparation for this second lockdown.
Yeah, so after each session, we would always do like just a general chat to find out what people actually wanted. And we always planned for, if we ever went to another lockdown, what would you want to do? And we found quite a majority of our young people wanted to do sessions that they could do in their own time. So rather than do like a live stream, they wanted to pre-record some workouts, that kind of thing, and they could just take away and do whenever they wanted to do. That was their biggest feedback, is like they want to do stuff in between our sessions.
Yeah. As consultations go, I mean, we are obviously asked our group who'll be interested. We had a good show of hands of people who'd be interested on Zoom. But again, we did some through summer, through last lockdown, should we say, which were more like bodyweight circuits, more than boxing, really. It were more like circuit training, I suppose. So we want to add the boxing in, but it's going to be a bit of trial and error, really, I suppose, on what works, what fits. Yeah, so it's going to be a bit of a challenge, like, but we're going to go for it, obviously. My experience through some of these numbers did drop off. It started off quite well. But we'll see. I've got a coach who's very enthusiastic, which helps as well. So hopefully that enthusiasm rubs off.
As I speak to the group, it's been just under 9 months since lockdown 1 started, and I wonder what they have learned since last time. I start off by asking Adam Parnaby from Vulcan Learning Centre.
I just think we're better prepared this time. We've been in the second lockdown. The first one was not prepared for it at all. I think a lot of things passed us by. We didn't do enough. We lost quite a lot of contact with people, and we said we won't do that again. So that this time, soon as we found out another lockdown, we was online that same day of lockdown, because we wanted to make sure we was doing something. We've done something every day since, and then we're going to try over the next week or two, try and bring especially what we're doing now, like a kind of a group sort of Zoom meeting, and hopefully that would work as well.
We've moved. Well, we're trying all our boxing classes on Zoom rather than live streaming on Facebook, just because that way the coaches can see the whites of people's eyes and can communicate with them, rather than, just knowing that some people are watching or not watching and commenting. We tried to do a storytelling, a bedtime story type thing last time, and that wasn't really getting the views either, so we've dropped that.
So because this podcast is all about sharing best practice and giving you some ideas for your own organisations, I finish off the conversation by asking the group if they've been exploring any new approaches this time around.
I think the most important thing, if you're going to obviously switch to all online stuff, how do you put yourself out there so people know what you're doing? A lot of our young people are really hard to reach. They just, like I said, telephones are really difficult. They don't go on the internet very often. We have quite a big social media presence, but if they don't have our pages on there, or they just don't have a Facebook account, how do you promote yourself and show what you're about to do with people who are hard to get in contact with? Our numbers have more than halved. The only solution I think works really well was, like I said, just get on it straight away. There was no gap in the sessions. We just went straight at it. But I think we're a lot of doorstep stuff, although it's to check on the welfare of our young people, it's also to try and let them know what we're doing. Like I said earlier on, we were so slow. This time, there's no excuse really. We're going to get straight on with it.
Do you think there's something very powerful and important about having that doorstep approach?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it shows that our staff care and they're always there from that kind of thing. Particularly this project's still very young. It's just got going for us, and I'm sure as for most of the people, we're just kind of like building relationships. Things are going pretty well. Numbers was building. People was happy. The atmosphere was very good. And then out of nowhere, the lockdown comes. We have got to try and maintain them relationships we're very lucky. We've got very good staff at Vulcan, and we've got to try and maintain relationships at the same time as being in a lockdown. So I think the best way to do it is to get out there, show them people that you care, and get to see them as often as you can.
What we're doing is we're contacting all of the young people who have attended the boxing sessions or any of the combat sports sessions during July to November, and we're then going to find out if they want to be active during the lockdown, and coaches will then, once we've got a confirmed list of those who do, we'll develop individual kind of training plans. And when I say individual, based on people's abilities, they'll be put into groups, and then we'll tailor the plans slightly based on what equipment or stuff they have available for themselves. And it will then be up to the young people to train on their own, but they'll have regular contact with a coach and with a youth worker to find out how they're getting on, to motivate them, to adapt the plan if they think they're struggling with particular things. And the youth work will be mainly there to support their kind of emotional well-being. Additionally, we will be doing some stuff online. So we've also, to kind of give people goals, we'll be having conversations with them around individual goals, but then we'll also be, the coaches came up with the idea that they wanted to do a weekly session on Zoom where young people will be able to train with a particular type of circuit and compete against other people from other sports. So, for example, judo versus boxing, and then there'll be one person crowned a winner each week. And we will also be doing some small bits online, but more like technical stuff, so everyone can access that.
I've also had a bit of interest from parents asking to do one-to-ones, obviously at a distance, but I'm still unsure if we can do it. Ideally for us, we've got an outside space as a gym, so what we're thinking of doing is putting a bag up outside and running one-to-ones there if we can, really. I mean, I've actually given away 3 punch bags before we went into lockdown, but again, you know, even if somebody's got a punch bag, how would they listen to a Zoom session while they're punching a bag? Going to be difficult, but again, it's going to be kind of a bit of trial and error, see what works, see what went down well and what didn't, really.
I think some partners during the first lockdown did open up their equipment stores for members to be able to take home, and it was signed in and out and everything, and then they brought them back at the end, etc. But I think for some organisations it would work. For others, it might be a logistical nightmare for some organisations.
The advice for youth work is that it can carry on as normal in groups or in one-to-one. Now, we're not planning to do youth work, meaning boxing, in groups, but we are seriously considering doing boxing one-to-one in the gym with individuals, just a handful of them who are part of our wider Switch Up program of getting mentoring and counselling, because the boxing is a key part of our model. So yeah, we're seriously thinking about that, doing it with a handful of people because it doesn't break the youth work guidelines.
I'm glad everyone's thinking kind of outside the box around how they can support young people. So
yeah, I think my advice would be don't get put off by young people's engagement. It's kind of like building a house, brick by brick. And I feel like the most important thing is consistency. So even if there's 2 young people and they have something regular, over time someone else might join in, and then just kind of builds from there. So I guess consistency and just kind of like not being fazed by the engagement too much as well.
Just to say, I think we've got to face facts that online boxing sessions for the vulnerable young people we support are second best, aren't they? And we've got to make the best of it. It's never going to be as good and as suitable as appropriate. So we're trying hard to publicise the sessions we're doing to the young people themselves, to parents, to make them accessible, to make them useful, and monitoring participation levels to get them, to try and get them absolutely right.
Okay, guys, thank you very much. Talk soon.
Take care, guys.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, guys.
I'm Marcellus Baz. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Switch Up and Managing Director of Nottingham School of Boxing. I'm here to share my learning about improvising and adapting during this pandemic. What we do at Switch Up is we provide a safe, inclusive environment for young people to participate in sporting activities, predominantly boxing, to help them to channel their anger and aggression in a positive way, whilst having positive role models to work on their discipline, life skills, social skills. And then we have Switch Up that provides that wraparound service, that holistic service. A learning culture is absolutely important during these times because we've never had these times before. So we've got to learn, and we've got to go through trial and error and look at what's working and what's not working. So I think that, if you're going to be resorting to what you know, it's not going to work because we're facing something absolutely different. It's so important to learn from your environment, learn from what others are doing, and make sure that we learn from what the community and what the young people are actually saying, and see how we can improvise and adapt to the need that's arising. Our place is a sanctuary. You know, people come here for all kinds of things. You know, it's not just a boxing gym, it's so much more. And if you have to close your doors to people, you know, we're the last line to a lot of the people that are really desperate, that haven't got that support, with government cuts to youth services, you know, social services, statutory services are stretched. So when you have to close that door, it can be very difficult for the people that are, you know, reliant on you, that need that support.
Here's a future champion. How happy are you to be back at the boxing gym?
Good.
You excited?
Yeah.
Did you miss boxing?
Yeah.
How bad?
10 out of 10.
All right, now we're back. Let's have a big smile then.
Our purpose is to be there for our communities during times of need and struggle and pain. And right about now, there's a lot of confusion going off in our communities. People don't know what the new laws are, what they can do, what they can't do. They haven't got support to mental health services. A lot of things are closed down. They're isolated. They might be at home lonely. They might be digitally deprived. They have got no connection to any other human being. You know, these times are very different, and they're different for all of us, not just people that are running organizations, but for young people, for services. And this is why it's absolutely imperative that we develop a learning culture. For Switch Up, for Nottingham School of Boxing, the physical activity is such a big tool to develop relationships, to develop friendships and trust. So one of the key things that we really had to adapt to is that we couldn't do no sparring, we couldn't do no pad work, we couldn't do no close partnership work. Having to close the gym, that's completely been removed. And then when we had to open, we had to run to a scale where you have restrictions. We had to measure it out, of how many people can we get in. We had to be able to look at ventilation, look at hand sanitizer, the track and trace system. These are all new things that we had to bring in, and we had to improvise and adapt. The biggest thing was going online at the time. So that was a huge change for us, to be able to train all of our staff up in a very quick period, to be able to interact with vulnerable young people and their families during this difficult time. And we know that you can't wholly depend on being online, because it works for some people, it doesn't work for some people. Some people need that human interaction. So this is why we had to take a balanced approach of online work and socially distant face-to-face work. So having at first trying to just go online, that didn't work. We had a challenge of people, they were digitally deprived, not having the equipment, the internet, etc. So we had to look at improvising and adapting around that. So we had to come back to the drawing board and look at, okay, well, we are frontline workers, we're key workers. We have to make sure that we get out there and support those people that really need us. That, you know, was a challenge to us, because people were asking us for food. You know, people were losing jobs. So we had to then make sure that we talked to all of our partner organizations, the statutory sector organizations like social services, food banks, other community partners, to make sure we weren't duplicating anything. We worked with local schools to be able to identify vulnerable families that were falling through the gap. One family had a tin of beans that they were having to eat and share between 6 of them. You know, it was really bad. So we had to take them challenges back and improvise and adapt, and look at how do we then go back to our funders and our business donors and look at seeing whether we could raise funds to be able to provide food parcels to these families, to provide online counselling service to these families that were really struggling with their mental health, to be able to provide mentoring service, to still be able to keep people enthusiastic and have aspirations of getting past this and having a productive future. and still continue with the education side of things online as well. So there were huge challenges. It demonstrated us being agile, which I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of my team that showed incredible agility and determination and commitment. I think at first when it happened, it was, you're completely knocked out of your comfort zone, what you are good at, what you can provide and what you normally provide. But I think as a leader, as somebody that, really is committed to caring for their community, your organization has to stand up and support people. So very quickly we realized that, okay, if our normal A plan don't work, we need to get back to the table and look at a B plan and a C plan. But whatever happens, we have to be there for our community. The support that we've received from Fight for Peace and the Fight for Peace alumni has been absolutely invaluable in helping us get through this period and really cementing some of the decisions that we were really unsure of before. I think that what works is talking to your community, talking to the young people, actually listening to what challenges they're facing. Nottingham is going to face different challenges to, say, Birmingham or Manchester or Liverpool. And the key thing that I would say that we've learned is to make sure that we listen, and then we come together as a team and we look at how we can look at finding solutions. I think it's really brought us closer together. It's really showing the commitment and determination of each team member to really make these changes, because it's given me a load of respect for my team and partners, because we've all had to be in our own comfort zone. We've had to adapt to a completely different way of working from home. We had to develop new systems to be able to achieve our goals, because your goal might be to support the community, but if your system isn't right, you're not going to be able to achieve that goal. We've brought in clinical supervision for our team members. So if anybody needed to speak to somebody around any issues, they can contact somebody specifically for clinical supervision. We've also got in-house mental health first aiders that our staff members can go to and speak to. We've been very adaptive in trying to make sure that our staff have got all the right equipment and they're comfortable, they can be engaged, and they can actually reach out and they know that somebody's there for them. And we are absolutely determined at Switch Up and Nottingham of School of Boxing of finding ways of making sure that we don't have red tape that keeps us in, like, we can only provide this and we can only do this. So having that agility is absolutely imperative, especially in a time like this. And this is why having, a team of people like we have at the Fight for Peace alumni, having various different organizations, and what we're doing right now is sharing our experiences, sharing our, best practices, sharing what went wrong and what was right, so we can learn from this and we can then filter it down to organizations right across the country, and they can make them changes. Because, what I always say is, why should you, if you burn your hand, let everybody know that the fire is hot so they don't have to burn their hand? You know what I mean? And that's why it's important that we learn and we get this information across to everybody else. If there's anybody thinking out there that we can't do that, or, that's not us, that's you putting mental blocks in the way. We started off with a pair of gloves and pads doing a bit of boxing. And the only way you grow and develop is if you take that step and come out of the uncomfort zone. And the thing that should drive you is the need, the community need, the people that are struggling, and the people, what do they want? Just because you're putting yourself in a box to say you're just a boxing club doing a little bit of this or a little bit of that, well, this is the time for you to do a little bit more.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Fighting Back, and a big thanks to our partners who featured in this episode. So Vulcan Learning Centre, Gloves Not Guns CIC, Switch Up CIC, and Sheffield City Boxing Club. Thank you. For any further information about this project or our work here at Fight for Peace, visit our website fightforpeace.net, or you can email me directly at bali, BALI, at fightforpeace.net. You can find all these links and details of our partners in this episode's show notes. This podcast series is supported by Sport England through the National Lottery Community Fund on tackling inequalities. The fund reopens, re-engages and strengthens sports services across the country. This podcast is a Mike Media production. All the best until next month. Goodbye.
Brian, we're going to see you with a mustache next one, yeah?
Man, I tell you what, if I take my beard off now, it looks like I've got no chin. I got so used to having a beard.